Easy.
In 1969, a group of astronauts changed the world. They walked on the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
In 1972, our journey ended. We've never been back. 2010 begins a year of change. Private companies are working on next-generation spaceships. Governments are looking to go back to the moon and on to Mars. It's time to look up and dream again. It's time to push humans into the cosmos. It's time to educate and engage the planet. It's time for Spacevidcast.
Welcome to Spacevidcast 305 for Friday, February 5th, 2010. My name is Benjamin. Again, I remembered again. 2010, my name is Benjamin Higginbotham. With me is a beautiful, lovely, wonderful, and talented Carrie Ann Higginbotham. And joining us for this live show, we've got Chris Radcliff of SpaceUp, who will be here the entire show. There's been some pretty big news out there, and I know what you guys are thinking.
And Thank God Apple came out with the iPad.
Exactly. We've all been waiting for the iPad.
So that's what we're going to talk about for the whole hour.
Whole hour, nothing but the iPad. And actually, this news is so big that we've decided to bring back an old feature because I know you guys are going to want to talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the chat room. Yes. That was awesome. That worked out really well. I like that. If you missed it, well, you know, before we get into the fiscal year 2011 budget stuff.
SpaceUp says iPad has been canceled because of the new budget.
Exactly. NASA's proposed budget for fiscal year 2011 has been announced, and it is a bit of a shocker. So before we get into that, a couple of announcements. STS-130 is scheduled to launch this Sunday. This Sunday at 1:30 a.m. Pacific time. 3:30 a.m. Central, 4:30 a.m. I think it's like 4:30 a.m. Eastern. What would that be?
I have no idea. I'm not paying any attention.
30 a.m. Coordinating Universal
I'm just
Time.
excited that Jason's with us.
Yeah?
Okay, go on.
We've got a launch, big launch. Actually, there are only 5 shuttle missions remaining.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much confirmed in the budget briefing, the proposed budget briefing, that these 5 missions will be the last. There will be no shuttle extension. Now, they might slide into 2011 a little bit in case of scheduling conflicts.
Right.
And, space shuttle stuff just slides. But other than that, 5 more. This is one of the last 5 launches.
It's the last nighttime launch, right?
One of the final 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I went all Battlestar Galactica.
You did that just for JetBiff, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, and Jason, who's in the chat room right now, will be at the launch. This is going to be awesome because we're going to have an astronaut on, and from Collect Space, it's he's going to kill me.
Robert Perlman?
Perlman, thank you. Will be on as well, and Jason will be taking care of all of that because thanks to This Week in Space and Spaceflight Now, Miles O'Brien, David Waters, the whole gang over there, we were able to get press passes, and so
thank you guys really.
We're actually moderately official, and let's bring Chris in, and we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff in this particular show, and you guys are all going to have different opinions on this because everyone is all across the board on this, and this conversation can be continued not only in our post show, and you'll need to purchase a copy of Epic in order to watch the post show, but also at SpaceUp at the end of the month. And Spacevidcast will be at SpaceUp, so hopefully we'll get to see you guys there. And I can guarantee you this is going to be one of the topics talked about at SpaceUp at the last weekend of February.
Between, let's see, the SpaceUp in general is like any sort of unconference. But then the Ignite talks as well. We've got a bunch of Ignite talks, or people planning Ignite talks. So that should be really interesting. I'm sure this will come up.
Now, we'll get into what that is a little bit later, but first I'd like to start talking with Chris. First off, Chris, thank you for joining us and helping us out on this particular show, because it's a polarizing topic. NASA has released their fiscal year 2011 budget, and we're basically canceling Constellation as a whole. Aries, Orion, all of it.
And I never got my shirt.
Your shirt?
Yeah, I never got an Aries shirt.
Oh, well, too bad.
I know.
What's your take on that? Are you for this, against this? Where are you at?
Well, actually, it's I won't call it my dream come true, but it's actually what I was hoping for when I heard the options coming out of the Augustine Commission. Because...
But even Orion? I mean, Aries 1, I don't know that anyone here in the chat room really liked Aries 1 all that much. And
Right.
Really, it was you're sitting here looking at this thing going, I don't get it. But Aries 5 kind of made sense, but private travel still. But Orion...
Right.
Well, but the thing is NASA supposed to be in the business of building hardware? I mean, some hardware, yes, but the hardware that they can buy essentially off the shelf, should they be building their own versions of that? I don't know.
But you can't buy an Orion off the shelf. I suppose SpaceX is making Dragon, but my understanding is Orion was designed, or they were trying to design it so that they could go to Mars. And I don't believe Dragon is designed that way. I think Dragon might be able to go to the moon at most, is my understanding.
That's what I thought.
But even then, it's still not even human rated. So
well, not right now.
I mean, there really isn't anyone else that has that stuff, right? Boeing doesn't have anything. Lockheed doesn't have anything. Who else has
that?
Something?
They've shown yet. That's really the thing, is that with NASA producing their own hardware, most of the other companies that are going to be dealing with them aren't going to even show anything that competes. One of the other things that happened with the Augustine Commission is that when they asked, what are the alternatives that are out there, suddenly these companies that have been working on one path the entire time came out with this, oh, well, we actually did this other study, and if you needed to do EELV, we have this particular design that you can use. So it's not like no one has ever thought of this and no one has ever done any discussion or planning on building these things. It's just it didn't pay to actually produce it until now.
It still feels a little bit like, and I go back and forth on all these topics, right? I don't think it's as simple, yeah, they did everything right, and we can just blame Griffin and co. for the Constellation debacle. It still feels like there's a lot of risk here. We're talking about really focusing on commercial space that hasn't been proven yet. And obviously, commercial space companies like Lockheed and Boeing, they've been doing this. I mean, these guys helped design these things. This is what NASA has been going commercial since essentially its inception. This isn't new. But they're talking about doing new space companies like SpaceX.
Well, Jason was saying in the chat room, he was like, yeah, that's the sad thing about new space, is like there's a lot of money and really not a whole lot to show for it at this point.
Well, that's kind of my point, isn't there quite a bit of risk in doing this new path as well? I mean, it feels like it might be better on paper, but that's it, on paper only right now.
Well, I wouldn't say that it's just on paper only. I mean, if you actually look at who's launching things, even just from the point of view of the U.S., I think it was something like 75% of kind of the space industry is completely outside of NASA. They're not doing NASA payloads. They're not under NASA contract. So I wouldn't say that it's just kind of jumping off the cliff into a completely new thing. But yeah, absolutely there's risk, because it's the beginning of an industry. It's the beginning of all these companies who are now going to, scrabble to try to get a piece of this. They're going to compete with each other. Some of them are going to go down in flames. Actually, a lot of them are going to go down in flames. I should probably use a different metaphor.
Well, but I mean, figuratively and in sometimes some ways quite literally. So I mean, that's not completely off. I mean, you don't want to be like they're going to blow up. I mean, that would be a terrible thing to say. But but you understand? Yeah, exactly. Wolf Spear is saying literally, and yeah, space nerd. That metaphor works exactly. I mean, that's
yeah.
It does.
But I mean, what it comes down to is that. When you open it up to so many groups, so many companies, so many different people with their own ideas, you can have 6, 8, 10, 12 different designs all being tested at the same time, all being flown at the same time. And if 4 of them work, then that's great. If only one of them work and the other, 9, 10, 11 all fail, you still have one that works. You're not betting on just one horse. You're not, going in and I want to pull in another metaphor here. Chickens, basket. eggs, something like that.
Eggs, counting, I don't know, something.
Yeah,
Right.
something.
Which is funny because one of the arguments against the new fiscal year 2011 proposed plan, by the way, it's worth mentioning, this is only a proposed plan. This is not official. This still has to be passed. But one of the arguments against it is that some people feel like we are putting all of our eggs in one basket in the new space industry, as opposed to having something like Constellation. Now, I'm not sure I agree with that because it really did feel like Ares 1 was a terrible idea. And if you don't have Ares 1, Ares 5 is a very expensive
Okay, but
way.
not everyone thought Ares 1 was a terrible idea.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
you're coming
Actually.
from that place of, well, Ares 1 kind of sucks, so Ares 5, pff, that's just stupid.
No,
Not everyone-
not at all. I think Ares 5 actually was good. Because
Okay.
I don't see another Ares 5 out there. Falcon 9 is not an Ares 5. Even a Falcon 9 Heavy is not an Ares 5. I don't see anything replacing the Ares 5. Nor do I see a clear path for us to put humans back on the moon or on Mars. I mean, flexible path from the Augustine Commission, sure, but there's no timeline. There's no deadlines for anything. So rather than having timelines slip, we just don't have timelines? Is that?
Yeah, that's going to be the part of it that somebody's going to have to come up with some sort of definition on that, whether it be NASA, saying we're going to make it back to the moon by this time period, by whatever means, or whether it's somebody else deciding, like an X Prize kind of thing, where it's like, by 2020 you need to land a man on the moon, or woman, or that kind of thing.
Humanoid?
Human, yeah, human. Somebody's going to have to define it, but I think that what NASA's just done is they've kind of erased the chalkboard and started to sketch out, a direction to go, and I like what it looks like so far.
Yeah, but what happens in either 3 or 7 years? I mean, the direction
Those
looked
companies
kind of
won't go
good. I
away.
mean, it sounded kind of cool back when the Bush administration did the new vision for space exploration, whatever they called it, and it turned out to be a huge debacle. But what's preventing the exact same thing from happening again?
I think that this is doing it this way. If you're basically saying, okay, a bunch of companies that are all looking to do, similar things and compete with each other, we're going to support you. We're going to allow NASA to actually purchase things from you, which that's one of the big changes. It's not that NASA was producing hardware and no one else was even, daring to do it. It's that there were companies like T-Space, if you know the T-Space story, they were building hardware, they were designing hardware, they were, setting up as much as they could, and they were getting slapped down, not necessarily by NASA officials, not, the official NASA policy is to slap these people down, but if you have to make a choice between the internal NASA project that needs to succeed and somebody who's coming up with an alternative, you'll choose the internal project every time.
I think B. the Justin brought up a good point, which we were talking about a little bit earlier, which was it feels like we're right on back where we were pre-Columbia, with no clear mission, NASA mission and they're going in 20 directions at the same time. And I'm not sure that they're going in 20 directions at the same time, but certainly it feels like there's no clear mission anymore. We've got the ISS and we're doing some science on it, but it certainly doesn't feel like we've gotten our money's worth out of that particular space station. And the new focus, the new budget will extend the life of the ISS to at least 2020.
Which I like. I was very much so in favor of that. I heard that, and I was very happy about that. That sort of that placated me enough to go, okay, well, maybe this will work.
And then there are also people who say, putting humans in space is kind of useless. It's just there's no real science behind it. The real science is done with the robots. And you look at the rovers on Mars, and you look at LRO, LCROSS. We're getting, and Hubble, another great example. We're getting great science out of the robots and the telescopes.
But it depends on the kind of science you're talking about. Simply putting humans into space for that amount of time is science within itself.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other thing, this is just going back to my roots in the space advocacy realm, is that the people who want to have humans go into space, it's often because they want to go into space. I want everybody to be able to go because I want to go.
Right.
And that's pretty much the only way that I'm going to be able to go, is if pretty much anybody can go. So as a result of that, I don't really need to be pressuring NASA to send me into space. I want to be able to, buy a ticket, or win a contest, or
Right.
Go get a job where I'm working on a space station. Those are things that they're important to me, but I actually have a hard time convincing other people that one must go into space. That's a very hard argument for me to make, but it's an easy argument for me to say I should go into space because I want to.
Right.
But you'll be able to, right? I mean, do you consider suborbital going into space?
Well, yeah, that's a good start. I want to set foot on Mars personally, and I think that it's going to be in a maybe a Bigelow craft that's fed by a SpaceX capsule that went to a refueling station. Who knows? But
is that what NASA's purpose should be? Because it kind of feels like that's where they're going. It feels a little bit like I saw the mouse right down there. It feels like they're turning into the infrastructure makers, because they talked about in the fiscal year 2011 the keynote that Bolden did talked about building fuel depots in space. And you're going to need these things if you want to go to the moon, onto Mars, and actually do this recurring. So NASA becomes kind of like the highway. They build the highways into space, and then the private companies build the cars that go there.
Right.
Yeah, I also see them as kind of the standards makers in that. NASA knows, I mean, they've got, what is it now, 75 years of space experience. They know a lot about how to do these things, and what they can do is share that experience, share the knowledge, share the, what works and what doesn't. Be the neutral third party, be kind of the FAA for space, although the FAA is also going to be the FAA for space. That'll be interesting.
What about competition from other countries, though? I mean, other countries aren't just sitting back, specifically India and China, and actually in the reverse order, I would say. Obviously, they're still quite a ways behind us. China's just done their first EVA not that long ago, late 2009. India is looking to put humans in space by 2012. And I believe China is looking to put humans on the moon by, was it 2020? And they've also got a space station that's going to be going up, we don't know, in 2010. So China's moving forward quite fast, and it feels like they're actually making more progress, further back, obviously, than we are. Are they just going to surpass us, go to the moon, start claiming the resources of the moon, go on to Mars, and then we'll hand off our space leadership baton to China at this point?
Well, I mean, it's a good question, and underlying that, you have to assume that the first parts of it are as easy as the second parts of it. Getting somebody into space, is that the hard part, or is that just the beginning?
Right.
Especially if somebody's already done it, and that a rocket works and a capsule works, and that docking maneuvers should be done in a particular way, and this is how you make a spacesuit. Catching up isn't necessarily going to be the difficult part. Now you say, go to the moon, start claiming resources. Which resources are going to work? What's actually going to make financial sense? Is anything going to make financial sense, or are you going to be doing it again just for national pride? I mean, a lot of it is, as soon as you come out ahead, you realize that you're in the lead and you have to be making the decisions. So I don't think it's as simple as, somebody's coming up from behind. But at the same time, by all means, we should be doing all these things. We should be going back to the moon and going back to Mars. Going back to Mars. Well, humans.
Well, yeah, we'd be going back. We've been there.
Some of us think that we've been there, so I mean that works in some realms, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, we gotta
but I mean, and going.
Okay.
Great.
And Jason's actually bringing up a couple good points, which are, what resources on the moon? Well, there's a ton of helium-3, which actually the U.S. is out of, and it is used to help detect nuclear material in our ports. So it's actually important for us to have, let alone from the energy portion of it. Now, a lot of space advocates will argue for helium-3 will solve our energy crisis because we can create a reactor that will power everything. And unfortunately, that's still way far off. I mean, they don't have anything that's stable and usable today. So that's a little bit more of a pipe dream than it is anything else. But there is, I think it's titanium, platinum, some valuable metal up there. Lots of it. I don't remember.
Yeah.
There's actually a really great book on this subject. There's water too, but we have water here. By Apogee Books, is distributed by Apogee Books, called Moon Rush, and I would certainly suggest everyone go out there and read that book. I actually think platinum. Thank you, Vax. But go grab a copy of Moon Rush, and we'll kind of describe a little bit about what's on the moon and how. Because you would also mention, Chris, how do we make it fiscally work for governments or companies, or how do you make money on the moon? Because as Buzz Aldrin said, it's magnificent desolation. When you go there, it looks like there's nothing there. So how do you make money with nothing? And there actually is a lot on the moon that you just can't see or you don't perceive or understand, and it really could be the stepping stone for the rest of the universe. I mean, it's potentially. I mean,
Literally stepping. I'm sorry.
or maybe it's not. Maybe that's the ISS, right? Maybe we use the ISS, we change its inclination a little bit, and we use it. That probably won't happen. I mean, I'm just talking out loud here, but we change it and we use it as a way to get out to the rest of the universe.
Right.
Well, once you're in Leo, you're halfway to the rest of the universe.
Right.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing with the Bigelow space stations. As soon as they start putting modules in orbit, they're going to start using modules for everything else. They're going to, like I said, attach a couple of Bigelow modules to a propulsion stage and to a couple of Dragon-type capsules, and you've got essentially a ship that can go to Mars.
Well, Bigelow has stuff in orbit, don't they? I mean, they just don't have any of their final stuff, but I mean, they've got real product up there
to get into. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's not science fiction.
No,
I think
no.
the big problem right now, and actually I agree with NASA on this, but they were really vague on this, and this is something that I have been chiming for a long time, which is the propulsion that we have today is woefully out of date. It really hasn't changed since we started doing space travel.
Right.
Chemical rockets, I mean, sure, we added the solid rocket boosters, which are, I mean, not good, not safe, let's put it that
Right.
way. But chemical propulsion really hasn't changed, and it takes so much energy to get out of our own gravity well. There's got to be a better way to do this. Now, as everyone in the chat room will always bring up, the physics haven't changed, and that's true, but propulsion can, and finding new ways to expel that energy using less liquid, using less mass, that's a better way for us to get into space, and I think it sounds like that's what NASA's kind of looking to do. But they didn't say on Earth, they just said new propulsion, which could be ion drives, it could be anything.
It'd be the Justin says dilithium crystals.
Dilithium crystals, Captain!
I think
Beryllium's going to become important.
Beryllium?
Beryllium. That's the
Beryllium
reaction
sphere,
that the fusion reactor that the Navy's working on uses.
And actually, that's a real, that's real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Did you see his face? Yes. he wasn't like, I think it's going to be unobtainium. He was like, no, really beryllium right there.
No. Some of this stuff is really far out. I mean, some of the stuff we're talking about is 30 to 50 years out, but that's actually
Sure.
like really right here, right now.
Right.
Yeah, the Polywell is what they're going to do a test in, 2 years? And then that'll determine whether it's going to be feasible within 6.
But,
And that's a 10 megawatt reactor.
So, I mean, this is all stuff that could forever change space travel. The NASA administrator, Charlie Bolden, talked about getting to Mars in 1 week instead of, what is it right now, at its best 8 months or something like that. But he didn't actually go into any detail. So I don't understand, you know what? I challenge NASA, get to Mars in 1 day. I can say that too. What are they going to do that's going to get them there in a week as opposed to 8 months? How are they going to execute
What if they put a prize
on any of
beyond that? So, like, for instance, what if NASA said, okay, the first, trip to Mars and back that takes less than 2 weeks, you get, $100 billion.
So just turn them into a giant X Prize foundation. I mean, they've already got their Centennial Challenges. Just, funnel all the money through Centennial Challenges and make that go. Where's Pomerantz? I bet he'd like that.
Diamandis is like, yes.
Excellent. Yes, my planning coming together perfectly. Yes.
I should say that I've been very good so far in not mentioning all the guests who are going to be at SpaceUp who are going to be talking about these things.
Actually, that's
But
another
now
good
that I've
point.
said
is
that-
we're really only touching the tip of the iceberg here. There is so much conversation because we're really only talking about constellation and a few things on propulsion. It was a 20-minute presentation. Well, the whole thing was like an hour and a half, but the first 20 minutes from Charlie Bolden really talked about the vision that they have for NASA and where it's going to go. And we've talked about maybe 2 minutes of his keynote presentation. Right. And so if you want to continue the conversation, that's where SpaceUp is going to come into play. And this is going to be a conference. Actually, tell us about a few of the guests that are going to be at SpaceUp, other than yours truly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the most important, of course, being Spacevidcast. But see how I put that one out?
We're not paying him to say that. Can I just say now? Just,
I am.
No.
It's called playing to the room. Anyway, so I mean, there are going to be people there from SpaceX, from X-Corps, from Maston, talking about the Centennial challenges. Unreasonable Rocket's going to be there. Quick Launch. If you saw the Google talk about Quick Launch, if you haven't, you should go check that out. JPL, the X Prize, of course, Pomerantz and his lovely wife will both be there, as will Amanda Stiles. And also, I mean, we've got all sorts of interesting kind of side folks who are going to be coming in and kind of mixing up the conversation. We have a whole passel of filmmakers, actually, who are coming in to look at how to reinvent science fiction so that it, starts inspiring some science fact again.
That sounds really cool.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
I mean, can you just imagine? Oh, I didn't even mention the best one. You're talking about kind of, warp drives and that kind of thing. There's a guy, Greg Mahalik, who is from the Aerospace Corporation, and part of his job is to evaluate advanced propulsion. And so he's going to give us an overview of everything from, high energy chemical rockets all the way up to actual warp drive. So
this isn't a traditional conference. This is an unconference. At a traditional conference, you'd be telling me who your keynote speakers are and what time and date their topics are going to be. But an unconference is very different. Can you describe to me what an unconference is?
Yeah, the unconference is basically bringing the hallway conversations into the session rooms. So you go to a conference, you're listening to the different talks, you hear somebody and you start conversing with them in the hallways. You get the most interesting information because it's what you're interested in right then and there. The problem with that, of course, is that you go back into the session room and you're talking about whatever the organizers decided was important. If I was actually putting together SpaceUp as a traditional conference, the topics would have been decided, 2 months ago. We wouldn't be talking about, fiscal year 2010 or 2011. Sorry, we wouldn't be talking about, a lot of the things that are actually going to be of interest. So what an unconference does is it brings people together and then lets them decide what's going to be talked about. You get together, you do introductions. There's a big empty grid of lots of different spots to have lots of different topics of conversation and presentations and demos, and then you just start filling it in on the spot.
And what's an Ignite presentation? Because you do kind of have some pre-allocated presentations, but it's not your typical presentation either.
Yeah, exactly. During the party, actually, there's going to be a party on Saturday night, and there's a format called Ignite, and it's actually inspired by a format called Pecha Kucha, but you can, promptly forget that. And the way that Ignite works is you've got, let me see if I'm getting the numbers right. You've got 5 minutes, and you get 20 slides. But the catch is that your slides go on whether you want them to or not. Every 15 seconds, you get a new slide. So you hand off the deck, and then you speak. And you fill that 5 minutes, with frantic trying to get through your talk. But it's not as scary as it might sound, because you also have basically a room full of people who they're relaxed, they're in a party atmosphere, they're having a good time. They're all gonna, well, not all of them, but most of them are going to get up and do something very similar. So it ends up being a little bit more like public speaking karaoke.
That's a great way to describe that.
And that's really the feeling in the room, is just everybody's just like, go, you can do it. And you get up and you say crazy things, and then you sit down again. So that's what we're doing for kind of the, I've got a crazy idea, I want to present it to everybody in 5 minutes.
And this will all be available at the end of this month, which is the 27th and 28th, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's a Saturday, Sunday, and it's in San Diego.
Yes.
Say with us a level Sunday. And you can go to spaceup.org right now, and you can get your. I'm doing this from memory. I'm all proud of myself.
I know, which is why
I'm like, hang on, I can get the. It's not a .com, it's a .org, and the dates, and then. You can go to spaceup.org and you can get your tickets right now. Carrie-Ann and I will be there. You already mentioned a few of the other people that'll be there. And there's no necessarily keynote speakers, because everyone's a keynote speaker. Anyone can speak on anything, and the topics really truly are decided right there on the spot. So if there's something that you're truly interested in talking about, this is a great way to get some incredible minds to talk about what you're interested in. Throw it up on the board, see if other people are interested in it.
It's such a small, intimate kind of conference that you really are quite literally rubbing elbows with the likes of Mast in Space and, et cetera, GLXP, anybody and everybody who's going to be there, even names that you aren't familiar with yet, that you will be, Snibble apparently, that you will be familiar with by the end of the weekend. And it should be highly entertaining. I think we're going to have to iJustine it and just have cameras on our heads.
That would be awesome.
And then that way just everybody will get whatever we get. And we don't miss anything, they don't miss anything. It's just all right there.
Yes, we will be broadcasting as much stuff as we can. Now, as always, with any conference, the only way you're going to get everything and be able to get exactly what you want is if you go there in person. But you also understand that some people just won't be able to make it. But we're going to try to, and we'll work with Chris as well, but we'll try to make that as interactive as possible, and if we can, extend out the room to other people so that we can get even more people participating in this, because how awesome is that?
Right, and keep in mind that this is the first one. This is the first SpaceUp ever. Chris finally was the smart man of taking this out of the tech industry and shoving it into the space industry, and doing this for us, which, thank you for that.
Kowtow to Chris.
None of us were smart enough to do that or resourceful enough to pull it all together. But it's very easy enough to pick up and move anywhere. You guys were saying, how about somewhere where I live, or how about somewhere where you can do that, and it's very easy to do, and it doesn't take. It takes a lot of work. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, because you're not having to do all of the planning and invite all of these people and get all of this stuff ready. You don't have to worry about it as much as a regular conference. So it's duplicatable.
And as Craig said, you live in the UK. There's no reason you can't extend SpaceUp into the UK as well.
Exactly.
And there are, Chris, where do people go? I remember that was on the website talking about how you can start a SpaceUp in your own area. Where do people go for more information on that?
The SpaceUp is based on an unconference called Barcamp. And bar camps are happening all over the world all the time. It's not a once a year, pick which city kind of thing. They're happening, pretty much every weekend. And so SpaceUp is going to do very much the same thing. We're going to have, find a SpaceUp near you, start a SpaceUp near you, get in touch with people who want, SpaceUp. We're getting the first one off the ground so we can kind of show everybody what it is. And then we'll start, you'll actually just go to spaceup.org and, sign up to have one of your own.
Awesome.
So if you want to have one of your own, go to spaceup.org, contact us, and, we'll kind of get the ball rolling for you.
I don't even know the answer to this, but how many people do you have working behind the scenes to make this thing go? I know you're working on it. Is there anyone else, or are you just kind of
there's
dumping
me
it all on
and
your
myself?
plate?
No, there are actually 5 organizers that are the core of it, and a whole group of people that are supporting, beyond that. And so, 2 of the organizers have done bar camps before, Ted O'Connor and Patrick Crowley. They've actually done a couple of bar camp San Diego's, and so they know kind of the routine, and that's been a huge help. And then Jeff Berkowitz is doing all of our PR, both kind of the traditional media stuff and also just staying on top of all this crazy new media, Twitter and Facebook, and making sure we have a consistent message and that kind of thing.
Those wacky kids and their new medias.
Yeah.
Back in my day, we used postage stamps and envelopes and letters. We didn't have any of these online high-definition videos.
Are you done now?
Yep, I'm
Okay.
done. I'm done. You can keep
I should
going.
mention that the whole thing is being hosted by the San Diego Space Society, and so the president of the San Diego Space Society, Jesse Clark, he's also he's tireless. He's up at 6 a.m. and also at midnight and constantly shaking hands. He's also working on something that I can't tell you about because I don't know if we're going to get permission to do it. But if it is, it's awesome. And it involves hardware.
Awesome!
Yes.
Is fire
anyway,
involved? Oh! Ooh!
So, yes, there are some really cool things being planned. But if it was just me, we'd all be sitting out in the middle of a park somewhere on, maybe a couple of lawn chairs, but probably just the grass, because I don't know much about organizing. I'm just the guy with the crazy ideas. But
Bring some
luckily,
beer.
I mean,
have a seat. Let's talk some space. But it could be that too, by the way. I mean, it doesn't have to be this huge organized event. As SpaceUp could literally be a couple lawn chairs in a park and some beer.
Yeah, I mean the bar camp tradition is that you basically find unused office space. You have it on a weekend at some tech company, and you just kind of move in and take over the place for the weekend. We decided to kick it off a little bit more interestingly, so we're actually having it at the Air and Space Museum here, because you can't pass up sitting under the wing of some gigantic plane and talking about space. That's just,
Which is going to be cool in and of itself, right? So it's going to be at a cool venue.
Yeah.
There are going to be some really cool people there, and we're going to be talking about whatever's relevant in our industry and what we're interested in talking about. So I personally am very excited.
Pretty much
to
what
go.
Ben does all the time anyway.
I am, and USKO asked earlier if I would bring my own soapbox. I don't have one yet. She's working on making me one, but if she can get one done in time, you better believe we will bring a soapbox for
I
me to
should
stand
show
on.
you the scars on my hands. It's really bad. Really bad right now.
So that's going to be this particular show. Now stay with us. We're going to talk with Chris a little bit more in post-show, and we're going to talk a little bit more about fiscal year 2011, what that all means, and I want to bring in some of the other side of the argument because there are people that are frankly pissed. I mean, just like livid and really truly upset about the proposed fiscal year 2011 plan. I mean, just like throw in their air, just mad. So we'll be talking about that in Epic. If you don't, if you're not watching live and you like to watch Epic, you can watch it. Jeez. Oh, this is why we're ending the show right now. We're going to be talking about that in the Epic post show. If you don't have Epic, you can get that. It starts at as little as like $8.33 a month if you buy a whole year in advance, or you can just do $10 a month, whatever works for you. It is now available, finally. Woohoo! Just go to spacevidcast.com/epic. And by the way, the funds that go into Epic, that's what helps us go to conferences like SpaceUp and then broadcast that back to you live. In addition, and I hope this will be done in time, I don't know, we're working on doing it as fast as we can. You know those really annoying Google pop-up ads that pop up? Ustream was awesome and got us some stuff that we need, so we may be delivering for Epic subscribers only an ad-free version of the show. So I do want to thank Ustream for making that happen, and obviously they're the only ones capable of doing what we do. We've tried them all, and Ustream makes all of this happen, and the STS-130 coverage, if we can get it in high def, that's actually a question whether we can get it from NASA for this particular launch.
Right.
A little questionable right now, but if NASA sends us the high def feed, then yeah, absolutely, you'll get true HD 1280 by 720. It looks amazing. For those of you in the chat room who have been with us on prior launches and you've seen our HD coverage through Ustream, you will attest it is the best looking shuttle coverage on the internet. Now you need to have a fairly beefy computer and a decent internet connection in order to watch it, because you can't shove HD down like a...
It's really funny when people are like, I don't know, I'm working on my Commodore 64 and it's just not coming through really clear. And we're like...
It's all 8-bit! Yeah, but yeah, you're going to need a decent computer, straight up. Mobile phones, our mobile feed will not be working for high def, I'll just tell you that right now. But we're the only outlet on the face of the planet that we're aware of that does high definition streaming of space shuttle launches, and it looks amazing. And if you want it to look even better, you gotta order Epic, and I would suggest ordering it in advance. Now, having said that, I cannot guarantee that this will be done in time. So hopefully it will be. We're racing to make this happen. There are people working their tail off behind the scenes to make this all go. Chris Astor, you cannot have 3D.
Well, you can. It's called Going to Florida.
But yeah, so we're excited, and that's going to start. Our coverage will start late Saturday night, probably sometime, and Calf doesn't know this yet, so he's learning right now, probably sometime around 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm sorry, that'd be 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Well, maybe a little bit later. It depends. So somewhere in there we're going to be starting, but we'll be bringing the HD. He's laughing right now. He's like, "I'm coming in at what time? What's going on over there? You kids in your space shuttles? Back in my day, we had rockets." I don't know. I got old guy stuck in me.
He's not that much older than you.
I know. Whatever.
Okay, anyway, go on.
It doesn't apply.
Are you ending the show?
No, I'm just going to keep going. This is the show that actually never ends. Anyhow, so STS-130, join us for that. The best coverage on the internet, brought to you exclusively through Ustream, and we want to thank all of them for making that happen. And
buy your Blast-Off blend now so you can be awake for the coverage. Hello? Anybody?
Yep.
Oh, yes, we have to. We have to ask him the question.
The question. Before we go, Chris,
Chris, I hope you're sitting down.
are you ready for this question? This is the most important question you will ever be asked by anyone, and I cannot read that, Kath.
No.
He said a contest. He said, are you going to mention the contest?
Which contest?
The SpaceUp contest?
Oh yeah, the Twitter You go for it. The Twitter contest.
Would you ask him the question? Would you please?
All right,
Can we
first,
do that first?
the question and then the contest. Here's the question. What is your favorite orbiter?
My favorite orbiter?
Your space
that
shuttle
question.
orbiter. Which one is your favorite?
Well,
There is
I
a
have
right
to say
answer.
I'm partial to Discovery.
Discovery. I'm sorry, that's the wrong answer. All right, we'll do the contest now for SpaceUp.
How about we have Chris talk about the contest?
Yeah, how about you?
It's his contest.
Well, I'm pointing to you, and then you can just point back to
Ready,
me.
Chris, go.
Okay, so the thing with SpaceUp is that it's brand spanking new, and we don't know everybody that's out there in the community. So we want you to tell us who should be at SpaceUp, and we're going to give you a patch or a T-shirt or whatever you like. It's on the website. If you will just tweet who you would like to see at SpaceUp, so you can go to tr.im/go-patchy, and that takes you to the appropriate page. If you can't find that, spaceup.org. But that's going for another 5 days.
So you get free swag for suggesting people that should be at the SpaceUp conference.
Well, and the person who wins gets a free ticket to SpaceUp.
That was easy.
And my
Yeah, so-
understanding is that one of our viewers is in the lead. Is that correct?
Who's in the lead?
I don't know as of right now, but as of this morning, a certain the NASA man was in the lead, and he had the smart technique of letting people know to actually nominate him. That's smart and legal.
There you go.
All right, Chris, stay with us. We're going to talk to you in post-show more about fiscal year 2011, a little bit about SpaceUp. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you for live STS 130 coverage. Buy your Blast Off Blend. We'll see you next week and this Sunday.